Welcome back to Celebrity Radio. It's Alex Belfield talking to some of the country's biggest stars and some of my favourite people and legends too. We've got one for you today. Graham Cole, OBE, is one of our most famous actors, most famous for PC Tony Stamp in ITV's The Bill. He has, of course, done Panto and Doctor Who, and he'll be appearing at the Lakeside Country Club on October the 14th, in Oxford on the 19th of October, and November 3rd at the Phoenix Club in London. I'm delighted to say that Graham joins us now. How are you doing?
Hi, Alex. I'm very well, thank you. Sat in the sunshine. How beautiful.
Doing other things too. I mean, the glamour of show business sometimes can be overwhelming, can't it?
It is indeed. If we had cameras on us now, celebrity clear your own sewer. My poor neighbour Stacey had a phone call from his missus going, it's overflowing. And it was. I'm happy to say, because he can hear me because he's over the fence, overflowing in their garden. But it's...
Oh, thank God for that.
It's a shared, yes. So I've been playing dino rod, shoving rods down and hose pipes and things. It was very unpleasant.
Nothing more humbling than life, is there, Graham?
No, and I have to say, we don't make phone calls. We try and do it ourselves if we can.
It's interesting, I grew up watching you on the TV, and it's hard to remember now for this generation how big programs like The Bill were. I mean, it was a time when there were only 4 channels and 3 at one point, and you really all watched the same stuff at the same time, and everybody was on the same page. That's not the case now, is it?
No. Regular audiences of 18 million. It was absolutely extraordinary. And they used to whiz us around the schedules, ITV, because they'd know that our audiences would find us. At the time, you well remember, if there was an international football match or something else that they thought was mildly more interesting, you get shifted around the schedules. And the next day, we'd be walking through the town, and they'll all be moaning at us as though we have power as to when ITV would put it out. It's one of the things I've always said to our producers, make sure it's a good episode, because you're not the one that gets stopped in the street next morning. So we knew who it was. We worked that out in 15 minutes. How come it took you half an hour?
Isn't it incredible, though, that people care that much? I mean, now you can make an entire series and nobody even notice. It's so hard to get noticed.
Yeah, it's really strange, because a drama have been whizzing us out. I think we're on some time, it seems, of obscure hours of the day and night. But yesterday, we were out and about yesterday, and this lady came up and she said, well, I wouldn't have thrown you out of bed. And sorry. Apparently that morning they'd shown June Ackland rejecting Tony's romantic advances. So my Mrs. Cherry gets very used to it, because normally if she sees that sort of happening, she'll give me a look and go, I'll see you in the car in 20 minutes.
I mean, we forget you were a nice bit of trouser, and the ladies found you delicious, Graham. This was lovely for you.
Do you know, I have to say, for all those guys that are dyeing their hair, stop doing it, because when you're grey-haired, really, it's a magnet. It's fantastic. They want to come and talk to you. I think they think you're safe. You can't actually take it beyond words.
Either safe or experienced, one of the two. I'm not quite sure which. Did you enjoy being defined by The Bill? I've had so many stars on over the years who seem mildly embarrassed by the thing that made them famous, and that always seems a bit silly to me. You always seem to have embraced it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think because there's 2 ways to view it. First of all, if you're in a show, and I was there for a very long time, and one of the main characters, you are committing yourself to that program. Admittedly, as I'm sure certainly you will know, Alex, but your audience may not, that Coronation Street, EastEnders, all of those actors on that show will maybe do a 2-year deal, but it'll have a 6-month option on it. And we all had that. I'm just very fortunate that I had 25 pickups, but it's whether you want to live your life like that. But you're absolutely right. It takes over your life. I'd done a lot of theatre beforehand. So really what The Bill gave me was a chance to still ply my craft with wonderful stories, and I love playing Tony Stamp. But also it meant I could be a dad and a husband for the first time, because for those sort of 12, 14 years before, I was always on the road.
It's the nearest thing you're going to get to a proper job with some security, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, you commit to that job. Now, I have to say that I'd never played a policeman on stage. I was always the villain. So, and I was singing, I think it was either Caiaphas or Pilate, one or the other, because I do musicals, as you know. And I think it was Caiaphas. And Phil Grace, who was a feature editor at Thames, said, they're just starting this new show. You should write to Peter Grugin, as the producer of it, and talk to him about it. I said, well, I've never played a policeman. He said, I know you'll be perfect for this show. So I did. I didn't get anything that year, but the second year, and as the audiences will know, I was sort of a glorified walk-on, really, for quite a while, which was fantastic for me, because you could wander around and talk to the crew, find out how this one handheld camera worked because I'd only done multi-cameras. I'm sure most of you would have done that, as EastEnders, again, is have 8, 9 cameras on them. And it also, I was out researching because they wanted Stamp to be this upfront copper driver, really experienced, first-class driver, gunman, martial arts expert. I mean, if you wanted to throw at an actor, they threw it at me. And I love that research part. I'm sure you're the same. You know, when we're out there and we're trying to find the characters, the walk or the stance, the voice, whatever. And it was amazing. But I was out with the real police all the time. I did the driving course at Hendon 8 times in my 25 years on the show, so I could actually drive on the streets with the blues and things on.
Amazing.
But I had a racing license. I've always raced cars. I've had a racing license for over 50 years. So I kind of knew how to handle cars anyway, but then to be taught by the experts was just glorious. And that's carried on. You're absolutely right. I was out with the Somerset and Taunton Voluntary Police Cadets, of which I'm ambassador of the police cadets in this country, and it was great. And they came up to London, and I was able to show them my city. And it was beautiful. But that continuation goes on with the real police. It's amazing.
Tell me how you stick out. I mean, I'm always curious what the recipe is for success and to be remembered. I mean, so many people we don't remember, yet you're sort of iconic in that role. What was it you did, or was it just an accident?
Do you know, I honestly believe, Alex, that whoever you play, you know, and I play a lot of villains in Panto and stuff, and we're having a discussion about it, funnily enough, in the car with my wife and my daughter yesterday. And I play, he's horrible. You know, whoever I play is really, the kids are going berserk when I walk on stage. Because I'm old school, you know, you want me to be a villain, I'm a villain. Yeah. And to play Tony Stamp, whether it was a step too far or not, I leave the audience to judge. But I played him for policeman. And that was the demarcation. I wanted Tony Stamp to be somebody on their relief. And they would go, yeah, that's Tony, yeah, that's Fred, that's Bill, that's whoever it is. And remember, I started that show in 1984. When I do my one-man shows, I actually test the audience by saying Orwell was right.
Yes.
and then you know whether you've got a cerebral audience or not, or whether you need to take it. You know?
Talking of which, have you ever been tempted by Celebrity Big Brother? I mean, I'm sure they've asked.
I've never been asked.
Really?
Do you know, the one I'd love to do is Strictly, but everyone would love to do Strictly. I've done 12 musicals, something like that. And of course, we're made to look fantastic by the choreographers because you've got the girls and the boys all dancing around you and it makes you look amazing. But I'd love to learn to dance properly. I think it'd be wonderful. Because Cherry and I, we do a lot of celebrity, if you call it celebrity, but charity balls and things. And we sort of dance around the floor badly. It would be wonderful to be able to lead her around the floor properly. That would be fantastic. But we never get asked. I think it might have been like your introduction, Alex. People think I'm a copper.
Do you regard yourself fundamentally as a singer-actor, or do you regard yourself as an actor? Because you do both very well, don't you?
Well, that's very kind of you to say that. The thing that I do is, when I was singing the big musicals, like Jesus Christ Superstar, like that, when I was singing Caiaphas, Annis smacked his head on the scaffold set, if you remember the set of Jesus Christ Superstar, and was being sick in a bucket. And his understudy, unfortunately, kind of went to pieces because there was no warning. So the musical director said to me, can you sing the 2 parts? So can you ask the questions of Caiaphas and answer Annis? Wow. And I know all the words, but Annis is a high tenor and I'm a baritone. And I did it in falsetto. And for about 1.5 years, I was being chased by D'Oyly Carte. There happened to be a scouting on that night, and they can't get Wagnerian tenors, as we all know. So he chased me for, as I said, about 1.5 years or something, kept, phoning me and sending letters stuff. And I wouldn't put myself through it because although I read music, I don't read it fantastically well. But if you go into Gilbert and Sullivan or anything like that, you will have your leads dedicate their lives to that. And I've worked Panto and other shows where my fellow artists have come up to me and said, you sang a B and it's an A. So, oh, really?
Everyone's a critic.
It's a bit of that. So what I decided to tell everyone is I'm an actor who sings depending on how well I'm singing at that moment in time.
The new world that you've sort of gone into is Panto post the bill, because of course this is a way A, to be seen by the masses, and B, to earn decent money. It's amazing how it's the new cool, isn't it?
Do you know, I did my first Panto in 1974, and that was wonderful, down in the Hippodrome in Bristol, with Dora Bryan and Mark Winter and the wonderful Bertie Hare. Wow. George Lacey was my dame. I mean, it was extraordinary time. And I think it was Little and Large, I think, was the special act.
Was it really?
At that time. I've now done 30 6 or something like that, pantos, and musical shows as well. I played Scrooge, which is my favourite of all. And also, of course, I was the first Beast in Beauty and the Beast. But that was 20 years ago, and I was a bit thinner and had dark hair.
I suppose it doesn't matter how old or fat you are when you're playing the Beast, does it really? I suppose.
No, well, until as I did, you do the transformation scene.
Yes, I suppose.
You're all hot and sweating, you've been in that head,
Yes.
and then you have people saying, put it back on.
Is there still a better thrill standing out in front of a live audience than standing in front of a camera? You can't really compare the two, can you?
No, you can't. It is totally different disciplines, and film again is a totally different discipline. I was a little apprehensive about going out and doing these sort of one-man shows. I don't think you should call it a show if you just stand and talk and show clips. I don't quite know what genre you should put into. But I loved it. I absolutely love just being on a stall with a microphone, knowing I've got a few clips from The Bill and from Holby City and 1 or 2 other shows that I've been in that I can show everyone. But of course, my clips go right back to almost the very beginning of The Bill. And when I say to anyone, why is The Bill still popular? If you watch it, you can see London's skyline change over the 27 years that The Bill was on, because we were always on the streets of London and always shooting at the iconic buildings. I would never, ever knock The Bill. And unfortunately, and I'll get told off about this because I always do, the press, the red top press, decided to print things that were just not true of me. I would never say the things that they said I did, and my daughter was actually with me when I did an interview for one of them, which I won't mention. When it was printed on the Sunday, Laura, who had only been about 12, it was 8 years ago, wasn't it, that it was off, that we came off. Yeah. So she was saying, you never said that, Dad. You didn't say that at all. Ring them up and tell them that they won't care. And unfortunately, of course, the audience, public, believe what they read, and there's nothing you can do about it. And they just made it up. They just wanted sort of some excuse because no one knew quite why the Bill ended. Right. But you can't blame me. I'd gone 9 months before. So it wasn't down to me, although they were still showing episodes in 2010. I finished in 2009, so...
Does it ever become normal when you find yourself either within or on the front page of a newspaper? You're there just a jobbing actor trying to do what you do, reading words off the page.
It's horrible.
Right.
It's horrible, and I would always say to young actors, if you're doing any interviews of any sort, don't meet in pubs or clubs or coffee bars, don't do any of that, and make sure that your publicity department are at your shoulder. Because they lull you into a false sense of security, Alex, and you say things, and of course they can take it out of context and they make it a headline. Right. Where to you, it was just an aside. And we're not trained to do that. We really aren't. We'll have a bit of briefing maybe, but you aren't.
I mean, and I wonder what it'd be like now compared to 10 years ago. There wasn't Twitter and Facebook as big as it is now. I mean, there's a whole new world of paparazzi out there. The general public who are going to sort of be watching your every word and every move.
If there's one thing that you really hate about the mobile phones, and I love it, Facebook and Twitter, I'm on them all the time, is the fact that wherever you are, people are taking your picture. And you just have to choose, like restaurants, you get to know the staff in restaurants and stuff. So if Cherry and I want to go out for an evening, we go to certain restaurants and they shove us in the corner out the way. Yeah. Because other than that, and fair game, they think this is the one and only time they're going to see you. And they'll take pictures of you. One of the things I'm always saying, when I was with the cadets on Saturday, and we're going around Covent Garden and places like that, and I was showing them some sort of back streets and telling them little stories of the history of London. But I'm always saying to them, if you're standing next to me, you will be in a photo somewhere. So if you told your mum that you're somewhere else, don't stand anywhere near me.
So just tell me what you do for the police. So do you technically work for the police now? So it's sort of gone full circle, or how does it work?
No, not at all. I am hugely honoured to be asked by them, and we do some gun and knife crime still. Because we're all the kids now. I mean, the reason we still say on the posters, Graham Cole or Tony Stamp from The Bill is because they're all still watching it. They're watching it at 7 o'clock in the morning before they go to school and stuff. So it's a whole new audience. It's amazing that happens. But it's more that side of it, the charity side of it. And I still hugely honoured to be invited and hand out commendations and go and visit police officers that are in hospital and stuff like that have been injured. But my biggest thing is that 2 years ago, a good mate of mine, Gary Hayes, who's a British Transport Police officer, asked if I would join them in the concept of Post-Traumatic Stress 999. And so that's a brand new charity. It's just for our blue light services. And next month, on I think 18th, 19th, or we might meet up on the 18th, the 19th and the 20th at the NEC. It's a huge international blue light conference and exhibition where they have all the new equipment and the new vehicles and all that. And we have a stand there, and paramedics, fire officers and policemen come and talk to us. We hope in the end to have houses in each of the major cities so they can just drop in for coffee. So when it gets too much, they can download and talk to them. Because, as you know, Alex, who do we talk to? We talk to those of us that are in the industry that we know and respect. You have to talk to people that understand your industry. And post-traumatic stress is something that's buried deep. The Butch thing still goes on everywhere. Gary, bless him, did the 9/11, the bombings and that had such an effect on him. He was down in the tunnels, and it was awful. And it creeps up on you. You don't realise the people who can tell you you've got post-traumatic stress disorder will be your family.
I don't think any of us can appreciate how tough that must be.
No. Well, I can go back a long time, and I, as you know, I used to go out with the police on straight shifts in the cars, so I knew what the jargon was. As I said, I used to play Tony Stamp, so if they were talking about stop and search, at least I knew how the guys interpreted it on the streets as opposed to what it said on the book or what the bosses might say it is, or the politicians. So, and it's a different world out there. And also now it's relentless. Our social services have crumbled. So our police are dealing with more and more domestics. A, they don't have the time. B, they will put their hands up and go, we haven't had the training. We're thinking on our feet when these things happen. And I say to many politicians, Alex, if you want to see what it's like, go on a straight shift anywhere in the country. Because I go, I don't just do the Met, I do all over the country. Go out with them, see what it's like to go to the 9th or 10th story of a block of flats at 3 a.m. to a domestic, and the door is opened by a little kid in a nappy. It doesn't bat an eyelid that there's coppers in his door.
Very finally, as we let you go, you've worked with some incredible people, and on the back of the bill, everybody wanted you on their show. I think probably most famously with TV Burp lately, but of course, back in the day, Noel's House Party made you a big
Harry
star.
Hill, what a man.
Yeah, brilliant. But then I look at Noel Edmonds and what he did for you. That brought you a whole new audience as well, didn't it?
Massive. Do you know, someone still, or every now and again, people still shout, I'll have chips with mine, which is something my character ended most, or Charlie Adams, wonderful Charlie Adams, the writer, a script writer, used to write that in. He came to me, we'd only done about 2 or 3 shows, and he came and said, I've got this idea, and if it works, it'll be great. It'll be one of them catchphrases. And it was absolutely, he said, we're not comics. Andy Paul and I just went out and just did it as sketches, and we had a wonderful time. I think we did 48 live house parties or something. Over the years, it was absolutely fantastic. And yeah, you're right, but that's job in acting, isn't it? That's what we love. It's one of the things I think is the hardest, is when you hear that, you're being considered for something and say, no, the audience is going to think you're Tony Stamp. Well, they might do for a bit, but if you give me the right character, let me go and do my job. I'm a jobbing actor. My job is to convince them I'm somebody else. Yeah, the Holby City went out a while ago. It was totally different character.
That's a great compliment. You've got to give yourself that nod, haven't you? He could have put anybody to knock on that door.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. It was a wonder. To go live to, at the time, I think it was something like the audiences were like 26 million or something, 6 o'clock on a Saturday. It was extraordinary. And Andy and I, sometimes we just have to gauge it, because the cheer we got when the doors, and we only ever billed ourselves as the boys from the Bill.
Yes.
And it was fantastic. It was a wonderful experience, and I love it. And Harry Hill, I worked with Kenny Everett. And I kind of put Harry Hill in that same place. He's sort of before his time. He can't explain what he wants to happen. Right. And Kenny Everett was the same. I used to do loads of sketches for him, and I'd arrive and he'd be sort of frantically trying to explain to the production team what he wants, and I love working with that. It was wonderful, absolutely wonderful time.
And then Geniuses, very finally, things like Only Fools and Horses, to be part of that even briefly, or Doctor Who, what incredible roles and opportunities, even just to be in the same room as these people, let alone to appear with them.
BBC was amazing. I really was fighting the campaign to keep White City, to keep that studios there. I went in there when I was 22. And there's just something about those buildings. It's like working the West End when you go in those theatres. You think of all the actors, all the performers that have been in there and sat in those dressing rooms before going out. And at the time, the BBC sort of had like BBC Players, So we would do Shakespeare's and do the background and all sorts of things. And I would get called up because most of the time, I was doing rep. So I would come back and do one day in the studios and earn more money than I did all week. Working in repertory theatre with 3 plays in my head. So
Incredible.
But it was wonderful. The BBC were fantastic to me. They really were. It was amazing.
Just on that rep thing, I'm always fascinated how you do that. The speed in which you have to remember and then forget it to remember the next thing is extraordinary. What a discipline that is.
Don't think about it. You'll go mad.
Is that right?
I mean, on the bill, as you know, in fact, it was on one Friday, I worked 5 episodes, all disconnected stories. All
Nothing to do with each other. Christmas tree in one scene, summer in the next.
Yeah, absolutely, it was, yeah. And you do big dramatic scenes on the bill, the one where he ran the guy over, and big dramatic scenes where the Inspector Munro asks for his shield and all that stuff, and then he goes out of the door and along the corridor and into the changing room and has a go at all the others because he's been suspended. And walking through that door, we didn't pick up the other side of that door for 5 days.
Wow.
And you've got to remember what your emotion was, because to the audience, it's the same face.
I was a kid when I used to watch that, and it was so dramatic. Were there ever any scenes that you took home with you that actually affected you?
All the time.
Really?
Yeah, all the time. If I would say that the thing about theatre is, of course, we have got the 2.5 hours, the same as the audience have, to gear yourself up for those dramatic moments. I had a lovely time. We did the Half Moon at Putney last week with my one-man show, and 2 of my best mates from the bill came, and Dave Hodges, who was prop master, and also Nigel came, who was the first assistant. And I told the story that you're gearing yourself up the night before, because if the scene on Wednesday, the schedule says you're going to cry at 11 o'clock, because it's television or film, you're going to cry at 11 o'clock.
Right. I
kind of said then, I might have said to Nigel, I feel really happy today, Nigel. I don't feel like crying today. I'm in a really good mood. Don't care. He's going to shout action, and at 11 o'clock you do that scene. So whether you're in rep or TV or whatever it is, again, I was sort of explaining some of the techniques, as you will well know. Even if you're going to play a baddie, you've got to get your gut in the right place. And on TV and film, it's all about your eyes. So you've got to put yourself in that absolute emotion that you're trying to convey. And it's a wonderful, a lot of actors that don't watch this. I watched every episode. In fact, I watched some of the episodes I wasn't even in, so I knew the storyline of what I was coming into. But unless you do that, I used to try things all the time on the bill. And you see it sometimes, I'm not going to do that again. That didn't work. And I used to do something, and the producers would say, how you get away with that? Just for the audience. I would flick my eyes through the lens. I remember we've got one handheld camera. And the reason I did that was just to bring the audience into Tony's world. Like, well, what would you do?
Right.
And I just flick my eyes through the lens. And you just need that contact with your audiences. I used to say it's amazing that 20,000 people give you the privilege to be in their front room. That's extraordinary. Yeah. They could watch anything they wanted to watch. And that was amazing. Absolutely amazing to be a part of that.
What a life and career. Graham will be appearing at the Lakeside Country Club on October 14th, in Oxford on the 19th of October, and then November 3rd at the Phoenix Club in London with his one-man show and audience with. And any panto this year? Do we get to see you?
As of yet, they're still chasing me. I haven't convinced. You see, life has got in the way. I've reached a funny age. I've got a grandson, and I don't want to be away. I miss my kids' Christmases, and I've got this funny thing going on. But if kudos, say to me, I go Wimbledon or somewhere close, somewhere near, I might be tempted. But at the moment, of course, they're doing all the big names. You've got to remember, I'm a has-been. Know where you are. Know where you are in the hierarchy.
I know what you mean, but it doesn't mean just because they're on Big Brother or Love Island doesn't mean they're any good or can do the job, Graham. We must remember that.
Yeah, if you want a career for 44 years, be honest with yourself and know where you are in the status, and get out there, and when they say yes, take it for all it means and enjoy every second of it.
Graham, you might be a has-been in your eyes, you're a legend in ours. We love you very much and we thank you for your time. Thank you for the memories of the bill, and see Graham at the Lakeside Country Club October 14th, Oxford on the 19th, November 3rd in London at the Phoenix Club. Really lovely to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Bless you. Thanks so much, Alex. God bless you. Bye, everyone.